Welcome, Bec Stone.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you with me today. Bec, do you maybe want to tell us a bit about the kind of style of therapist that you are? What do you love doing?
I love helping people that may not have had a solution in the past, that they may have tried a few different things and or may have even had massages before that haven't got them the results that they might have liked. So I love helping people that are ready to really step up with their health and get a solution. And I feel pretty confident that I can most times get a great solution for them. So they're my favorites.
Nice, nice. So Bec, tell us a bit about why did you get into massage?
I started my career as I did a communication degree at uni, and then I got into advertising and marketing and publishing, and I did that for 10 years, and I didn't like any of it. I got through my degree somehow, just know that there was an end, and then I went into advertising, and my favorite part was always the people. And in the end, my last job in advertising that I had, this agency, they had a massage therapist there on staff that you could go and book in a little cheeky half hour once a week. And I just loved it. And I loved the therapist that I had. She was incredible. She was quite a spiritual person, so really grounded and knowing. And she was also a lifeguard, and she just had this amazing lifestyle. And I thought, oh, if that's what massage therapists do, then I think I want to do that. So I actually studied for my diploma while I was working full time. And I just kept that in my back pocket thinking, oh, it's always good to have a trade up your sleeve. I just had this little ring in my ear and kept it in my back pocket until I had my son, which was probably nearly 5 years later. And at the time, I had decided I will go off full-time work and I'll become a contractor. And of course, within 6 months of doing that, I fell pregnant and then didn't have a maternity leave as such. It was just end of contract, no job to go back to, full stop. So after I'd had my maternity leave and spent that time with my baby, I decided, well, it's now or never, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. And here I am 5 years later, and loving it every day, still loving every person that walks through my doors, and I'm just passionate and so blessed to find my dream job that I love coming to every day, and I don't go and hide in the toilets anymore and wait for the minutes to tick down to the end of the day, because I have so much joy and pleasure in connecting with people and being a gift in their health and being somebody that's there to hold the space for them. So very, very blessed.
What an incredible heart you have for this. I think if anyone's listening, I've got goosebumps listening to this, and I'm sure for those that are listening, will be just like, oh. And for many of us, it's exactly what it's meant to be like. That delight in our career and the delight in people coming through the door, and in order to be able to enjoy that process of treating people, it is such a rewarding industry to be part of. I love it. And thank you for sharing your story. I'm so excited. Bec, what's it been like? So your son is 5 years old, and
Yep.
you are a single mum, and you're running a business.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like for you as a solo parent and running a busy clinic as well?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned, and what I would love to share with anybody in that sort of position, is that always take on what you can manage and work with that, and start with that. And then when you're ready, do the next step. So when I started massaging, or immediately after maternity leave, I actually cleaned houses, and that was all I could do. And that was okay, because that's all my energy would allow at that time. Then I got a casual job doing massage, so I was cleaning houses and massaging. And then I started doing treatments at home. So then I kind of had 3 jobs going, which was crazy. But then I got to the point where I could give away cleaning. I could step up with my stuff that I was doing at home. And then I got to the point where that was going so well, I could then transition out of employment and just running my own gig. And from that, I went to having staff and getting my own clinic and my own space, so not working from home anymore. So it's just been a gradual step by step, but it's always knowing ultimately what I want my life to be like and doing the steps that I can in that moment to get me towards there. So yeah, it's been quite a learning curve, and lots of self-reflection and understanding my limits and stuff like that. But just not pushing but stretching to that next step is what's kept me moving forward, I think.
And Bec, have you always been this clear on your outcome and could see a path through? Or is that something you've had to learn because of the curveballs that life has thrown you along the way?
Definitely something I've learnt. If I could have imagined that I would be in this position 5 years ago, I never ever could have dreamed that this would be possible. And I think coming out of I actually had a full mental breakdown when I had my son, prenatal depression, postnatal psychosis even. And so the world just blew up. But I just knew that this isn't me, this isn't my story, this is just what's happening now. And I had some incredible business coaches that helped me step up and step into my truth and my potential, and developed my sense of self-worth, my confidence, and appreciating my story, but not letting that be my story, and being able to move beyond that into the life that I want and love. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. Look, I think mental health and small business ownership, it's not talked about very often. And yet, when we are a small business owner, a business is a reflection of us. Yeah, it's not us. Our business is a separate entity. However, it's a reflection of where we're at. And when we hit rock bottom mentally, was there anything leading up to that that kind of, now that you look back, that you can go, that's probably what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Or it was just the perfect storm of hormones and responsibilities, etc.?
It was definitely was a perfect storm, including not having anywhere to live and a relationship breakdown and a mental breakdown and now a baby, and just all the things. And I probably had gone along being undiagnosed with bipolar, which I now know that I have. So that explains a lot of the troubles that I had leading up to my breakdown. So now that I know that, I can manage it and manage my behaviors and my patterns better, and just work with it and not fight it. And I accept that that's who I am and part of me. And I know not to let those unhelpful patterns take me to a place that I don't want to be, because I've been there for so long. I don't want to go there. So I know that I check in with myself regularly and almost on a daily basis. I do lots of different kinds of therapies that keep me on the straight and narrow, so that I don't allow those straws, so to speak, to build up on the camel's back and then hurt the poor camel again. So I limit the number of things that I carry.
That is such a good analogy. I think limit the number of things like that you choose to carry. Not and working with it. And I often talk about the analogy of working with people. Tai Chi. So when in Tai Chi, when something comes at you, you don't block it. You actually just deflect it, and you actually move with the momentum. And I think that being diagnosed with a condition and then living in acceptance of that condition are two totally different things. So I'm really curious to know, how long did you fight it for, and what was the key to change to allow surrender to go, this is who I
um, I'd say it was all in a process, and I'd say the biggest catalyst was having my son And having grown up with a dad who was also bipolar, knowing what my childhood was like and how up and down, and like walking on eggshells a lot, lots of trauma in that regard, and unhelpful behaviors that I developed and how I felt about myself and my dad and our family. I didn't want any of that for my son. And I chose in having him that I would do whatever I possibly could in my power to give him the best upbringing that he could have, and to be open and honest with him and encourage him to be the same. And just knowing that he's my biggest inspiration, and my biggest hope and joy, and yeah, just everything, all the things. But he's the one that I do everything for. Yeah, absolutely.
And often it is that, well, if we have experienced challenges or persecutions or sufferings or trauma, especially growing up, we have two options. We can either repeat the pattern, which many people do, and myself included at times as well, of repeating patterns, or we can use it as a catalyst for change, and actually make a difference to go, okay, knowing what I know now, how could I use that knowledge to behave in a different way that allows for a greater level of surrender, a greater level of leadership, a greater level of love, and model that to the beautiful little people around us. That's a pretty special and unique gift, I think, that you have, Bec.
Thank you.
So for you, if you found that you maybe have put too many straws on the camel's back, we'll go with that analogy because that's what we're talking about. I guess, what do you hold on to? Like, when you find yourself out of whack, what do you do to come back on track for you?
I've learnt to break things down to its absolute simplest form. So, what are we eating? Are we bathing? Like, that can be, in mental health, that can even be a real thing. But I take it back to the absolute bones. So what is important today? I need to get up out of bed. I need to go to work. I need to have breakfast. I need to feed my son. I need to make sure we have clean clothes to wear. And I just really pare it back. And then everything else can wait, because I know that when I am down in a lull, it's a phase and it's a short period of time. I don't know when it's going to break. And every day when I'm in that state, I wake up and I think, is today the day? And that can go on for a few days. But then when one day I wake up and I call it the sun comes out, and it's like everything's okay now. And just that knowing that nothing is forever, and that there is a period and a season for everything, including mania or depression. And I just, like you said before, you work with the momentum, like in Tai Chi, when a cyclone comes toward you in a manic episode, to me that's a warning, one, because I know after a high there is always a low, but also to work with it. Like, if I have extra energy and extra oomph to keep going, I use that for my powers, so as my superpower. So I might get more done in that time, but also to keep a cap on it and not take that too far, because the higher the high, the lower the low. So yeah, that they're the sorts of things that I've learnt to live with, and just know myself and love myself, even when it's hard and unpleasant, and yeah, when the world goes crazy, all the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, and it's an internal shit hitting the fan. That yeah, and I think, as someone who's also experienced mental health challenges, and I have learnt that I can experience highs, and which means I will often experience lows. It's certainly not a diagnosed manic thing, and learning that it's okay. Just because you go up, you may come down, and that's okay. Just because you're down doesn't mean you're going to be there forever. And it took me a long time, firstly, to accept that that's okay. Like,
Mm.
I remember a therapist saying to me, it's going to be normal for you to experience big highs, and because of that, you will experience. And I was like, I felt like, you're talking to me. Like, what are you talking about? I don't have mental health issues. It's like, well, maybe you do. Like, and as you've said, Bex, and as you model so beautifully, just to sit in acceptance of those. And, sometimes we'll say this, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just so. It just is. This is, I breathe in air, I breathe out CO2. I wake up some days and the sun comes out, and I wake up some days the sun's gone away. I'm still me in that process.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that is wisdom in their Beck. Like, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, listening to this who would have clients who would experience similar things to you have, that you experience, or that you have experienced, or may have experienced this themselves. And to hear that there is a way through, that there is actually some things you can put in place. It's not easy, as you said, sometimes every day is a fight. And it's obviously a fight worth fighting for, because it's, at the end of the day, it sounds like your biggest inspiration, as you said, is your son. That it's
Mm.
actually, you're not looking for the sun to come out for you, you're actually looking for the sun to come out to be the best version of you as his mum.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that analogy as well, even in the bigger community. We owe it to each other to be the best that we can be, because I'm a big believer that when your cup is full and you come from a place of giving, and if everybody is giving, then there's no lack, and um, I really try to inspire and ignite life in my clients so that they can pay that forward in whatever form that might be. It might be to their family, might be to their clients or their neighbor or somebody. But I think if you don't take on your wellness for yourself, as in it's a responsibility to yourself, but it's also a responsibility to your community to be the best that you can be. So whether that's mental health issues or no, um, it's still your responsibility to
Yeah.
give, I believe, to give and share and uplift.
And to be that role model for our clients too, like in terms of asking for help and just being, not even having to say anything, but just being the change we want to see in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
that makes a huge difference to our client outcomes, and also what we do experience in our community. The more we can, as individual people, become responsible for our results and non-results in our life and accept what's there.
Yeah.
I think there's an enormous capacity for growth as in humanity as we do that.
Yeah, I believe that. A good story is I was dropping my son off at daycare one day, and it was a rainy day and just one of those mornings, and a car had kind of cut out in front of me and then darted back in. And I was like, oh, okay. I'd noticed it and it was fine, where everyone was okay. But it turned out to be one of Archie's daycare teachers. And I didn't know that it was her. And I've walked in and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I cut in front of you. And I said, honestly, if I'm going to get mad about that, then, there are more things to be upset about in the world. It's totally fine. Like, you're good. And she put her hand on her heart and she said, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And it touched her, and that was her morning. And I thought, but it's so true. Like,
Yeah.
so many people out there get upset about the wrong things. And if we just pulled that energy into healing and making the world a better place, like, how good would it be?
And how easy is it too when we assume good of others?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
assume good. Like, we have no idea why someone cut us off in traffic. And
Yeah.
I think we can only apply that level of self-compassion to them, or a level of compassion to them, when it's something we practice for ourselves. When we make a mistake, when we mess up, when something happens in a way that we don't want it to happen and we react in a different way, to then own that, have compassion, forgive ourselves. When you apply that consistently, it's so much easier to apply that to other situations outside of us, like being cut off in traffic. It all happens. I'll often say I always call the right hand lane the fast lane. I'm like, it's on the right, you push it goes. Come on, people. Unless you are doing the speed limit or a couple of kilometers above, get out of the right hand lane. Like, just move.
Yeah.
And often know that when I'm doing that, that it's time for me to self-assess again. Hang on, why
Yeah.
are you trying to get to places really quickly? How come you're
Yeah.
not creating time for yourself to get to the places? I'm terrible at organizing time. And I'm
Yeah.
only
I
terrible
think that.
at organizing time when I don't take time for myself, when I'm
Yeah.
frantic and
Yeah.
I'm putting my, you know, as I'll often say, putting my overfunctioning pants on and I'm trying to get all the things done in a short
Yeah.
space of time. It's like just stillness, meditation, take some deep breaths, reassess your week. Like, how can you calibrate some of those things? Because it then allows for a greater, if you need to stop and help someone, I've got time to do it, as opposed
Yeah.
to running around
Yeah.
like a crazy human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for me, like, time management is not my strength, but I do things like meal prep. I make sure there's always freezer meals. I try to block out lunch breaks most of the time. But for example, this week I've just come back from holidays and I've had a crazy week working like 10 till 7, 5 nights with a 5-year-old. But here I am. But next week's really quiet. So I'm like, excellent. That is an opportunity to go and get a massage and go and look after myself and, sit and watch TV. Like, I place value on that time because it's so important to be able to switch off, and you don't have to be on high function all the time. Like, it's not human, and it's not reasonable to expect that of yourself. And having the compassion to allow yourself to veg out or whatever it is that you need to do, just allow yourself to be human.
Yeah.
Because that's all you are. Really.
And what do you think is the greatest impact you have on the world because of how you apply that on a regular basis, Bec?
One of my mantras is that I ignite life in others, and whether I do that through a funny joke or a compassionate ear or sharing a story or encouraging, that's what I'm really passionate about, in finding that spark in somebody that will light them up and make them be better than the best version of themselves.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Bec, I just want to thank you so much for your beautiful heart and for sharing so articulately the way that you think and the way that you feel into life. And I just know that so many people listening will be really inspired by the way that you show up every day for yourself, you show up for your son, and you show up for your beautiful clients that you see. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
My absolute pleasure. It's been lovely talking to you, Leash.